Thank you for joining us this evening, a regular scheduled council meeting of the Park City City Council on July 23rd, 2019 at 7 p.m. Dee, would you call the roll?
Jonathan Hare.
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Ben Salcetta.
Here.
Melvin Kerr.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
George Capps.
Here.
Randy Bailey.
Here.
Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. This evening, Pastor Ben Walker is going to lead in the invocation, and Councilmember Tom Jones is going to lead in the pledge. If everybody would please stand.
Okay, join me in prayer. God, I just thank you so much for tonight. These are the moments and these are the meetings where your plans are laid out. And so I just am thankful and I'm grateful for the people, the men and women that you've put in place from the city council all the way through all the different members and employees that work. God, I just pray that you would continue to bless this city as they set a standard that that a lot of other cities can look at in respect. And I just am grateful for this city, God. In your name, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. George?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
And Jim?
I second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Tonight, under awards and presentations, Sean's going to introduce one of our new employees.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to welcome and introduce our newest Code Enforcement Officer, Madeline, or Maddie Elmore. Please stand up. Thank you. Maddie is a graduate of Derby High School and for the past 3.5 years has been employed as a correctional officer with the Kansas Department of Corrections at the Winfield Correctional Facility. She is preparing to start school at Butler County in the fall. She says that she's excited to begin her new journey with Park City as a code enforcement officer, that she has a passion for helping people, and she's looking forward to working with the community. So, thanks, Maddie.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to meet you. Thank you, Sean. That brings us to public forum, and this evening we don't have anybody signed up for public forum, so we'll move on to staff reports, and we'll start with our city administrator.
Okay. Tonight I have several different items to go over. First, I'm going to give a plug for the League of Kansas Municipalities annual conference. It's coming up October 12th through the 14th in Overland Park. And although I've not attended an LKM conference, I understand it's very similar to those I've attended in my previous communities, and if that's correct, I think this type of event is a great opportunity for both staff and council to learn and hear about current hot topics facing the state and other communities, as well as visiting the trade show booths and seeing the latest technologies and advances in the respective areas. Early registration expires at the end of the month, so if council members are interested in attending, please just let one of the staff members, Dee or myself, know, and we can go ahead and make the reservations. Next is a proclamation in support of the U.S. Census Bureau and the 2020 census. The city has received a request for the mayor to sign a proclamation supporting the upcoming census. The request was made by REAP, which is the Regional Economic Area Partnership of all Sedgwick County cities. The proclamation simply states that whereas billions of federal and state funding is allocated based on that census data, as is the number of U.S. House of Representatives seats the state will attain or get, they are requesting that the city support the goals and the ideas of the 2020 census. So I just wanted to bring that to your information. Number 3 is related to current economic development efforts. Just to give you an update, we've been approached or have heard about 2 of our larger existing businesses here in the city that are looking to expand their operations. Both have currently asked that their intentions be kept confidential for now, but I just wanted to let you know that it would be a substantial increase in both their appraised value as well as their workforce total number of employees. We've also recently met just this week with another company that is looking to relocate their operations to Park City. Again, they would like to be confidential, remain confidential at this time, but their plans involve a 2-phase construction project which would total nearly 250,000 square feet of manufacturing space, more than $15 million in property value, and another $10 million in business personal property, creating more than 25 to 35 new employee jobs. Next is WAMPO is currently working on their next call for projects in connection for their 20-year Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Applications are due by August 16th, and staff is currently working with PEC, the engineering firm, to submit potential projects such as extending Aircap Drive, intersection improvements, the bridge on 77th Street, which is our last bridge to be rebuilt, and a regional hike and bike trail. Submitting these projects at this time is not a firm or formal commitment by the council, just for consideration. Number 5 is the 61st Street Bridge progress. As you're aware, construction just began 2 to 3 weeks ago, yet half the bridge has already been demolished. Staff has experienced, honestly, very few problems or concerns with the temporary traffic pattern other than adding a couple of speed limit signs and modifying the turning lane, getting on southbound 135. They should be working on the current half for the next 5 months. In fact, they started excavation today. Pylons should be set in the next couple weeks. The substructure will be done in November and then beams in December. By January time period, the traffic pattern will be shifted, and then they'll start on the other side of the bridge. And again, it's to be complete in July of next year. And finally, earlier I had reported that our employee wellness program was going to participate in the Race for Freedom, which is a 5K fun run on September 7th. It's important to note that to date, we have nearly 50% of our employees that have all accepted the challenge and said that they're going to walk or run or finish the race in some way, shape, or fashion. So anyway, just wanted to give that to you. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Sean. Ben?
Yeah, Sean, I actually had a couple questions here. Going back to the first thing, you talked about the League of Municipalities conference, and I don't know if this is something that would fall within that, but I know several areas are kind of getting geared up for the 2020 legislative session. Is there anything that we have as far as smaller communities working together towards a legislative agenda or anything to that fashion where there'd be some sort of representation for some of the ideals and such of small communities?
I am unaware of that at this time. I do know that they have put out a tentative agenda for what they would be discussing, but they haven't broken it down. Normally they talk about their 5 different concurrent sessions that they're having, and they've had that identified. Right now they're just talking with broad subjects, and none of them were on the legislative update.
Okay, and I didn't know if they crossed it all. I was just thinking just in terms of having, if we do any work with some of the small communities, or if we work together with some of the small communities towards that degree of some of the issues that might be coming up in the 2020 legislative session that could have impacts on our cities there. The second part is towards the census portion there, and this is probably just a little bit of my soapbox just for a second here on that. I mean, obviously it's something that we need to do constitutionally is to take the 2020 census, but I will say I'm very disappointed and this is nothing toward you, I'm very disappointed in our Supreme Court in the route that they've taken in not requiring the citizenship question beyond our ballot or on the questionnaire. I'm the son of an immigrant, second generation American, and I do find it offensive when we do not require citizenship questions beyond there, because it has everything to do with our representation, how we are represented as a state, how we are represented as a community, when we do not take into account the proper number of citizens in our country. And so, though this is something that's very needful, I think it's going to be a very disingenuous census when it comes to redistricting and to the allocation of money that we as taxpayers put in. So while I know we got to do it, I'm not a big fan of how we're going to do it this year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion? John?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, please.
And Jim?
And I second that.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item 5, which is discuss and consider approval of delinquent recycling and trash accounts and setting a public hearing date. D.
Kansas statutes allow cities to assess the delinquent recycling and also trash fees to properties, excluding any unpaid amounts that have been billed in the last 60 days. In looking at the minutes, I believe Park City has only been assessing recycling in the past. That's what it looks like to me. And it doesn't look like anything got assessed at all this time last year. So as you look at the delinquent amounts, they might seem a little high to you, and that's why. Those were included in your packets. The statutes require holding a public hearing to hear any objections or protests. Letters will also be mailed to property owners at least 10 days prior to the hearing date to inform them of the date, time, and place of the hearing. Staff recommends holding the hearing at the next council meeting, the regularly scheduled council meeting on August 13 at 7 p.m. in order to meet the county's August 25th deadline to put the assessments on this year's tax statements. After the hearing, council will then be asked to consider a resolution to approve the report of delinquent fees to be assessed against the properties. Do you have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Dee? I think usually what we see is when we get to this point, we have some people come in and make it right fairly quickly too. Jim?
I don't have any questions, so I would move to approve the list of delinquent recycling and trash accounts and to establish August 13th, 2019 at 7 p.m. to meet for the purpose of hearing any objections or protests to the respective assessments.
Is there a second? George?
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Ben?
Sorry, I had a quick question here on this. As far as the purpose of the tenant versus the owner is going to be the one that's assessed these.
That is correct.
So for whatever reason, I don't know if there's a publication, is there any reason why the tenants would be made public?
Any
Or
reason?
list them? Why we list the tenants? Because obviously they're not going to have any skin in the game.
There is not a public notice published.
Okay, so it's just opposites. Okay, that was my own question.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. And that brings us to item 6, which is discuss and consider the approval of the delinquent stormwater accounts and setting a public hearing date. Dee?
This process is very similar to that of the trash and recycle. The authority to assess these to the property owners was given in the resolution that you all adopted last year in 2018. Since this does not fall under the same statute as the trash and recycle, we need to do a separate public hearing, but staff is still recommending the same time and date, August 13th at 7 p.m. After the hearing, as with the last agenda item, council will then consider another resolution approving the reported delinquent fees to be assessed to the properties.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Dee? Is there a recommendation from the council? Jim?
I don't have any questions, so I would also move to approve the list of delinquent stormwater accounts and to establish August 13th, 2019 at 7 p.m. to meet for the purpose of hearing any objections or protests to the respective assessments.
And Ben?
Second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item 7, which is discuss and consider a charter ordinances exempting the city from certain provisions relating to the election of officers. Doug?
Mayor and council, this charter ordinance is in front of you because of action taken by the state legislature in its latest session. The legislature adopted in the 2019 session a bill which allows cities to establish the date where where elected officials in the general election in November take office. Before that statute was adopted or passed this last session, the Kansas statutes established the date as the second Monday in January. That's an inconvenient time, obviously, for us, because second Monday in January doesn't hit any of our regular meetings. It's also a period of some 45 days, maybe, past the election. Actually, more than that. 60 days from the election and probably 45 days or so from the certification of the election by the county election commissioner. So given that we now have this authority, what you have in front of you is a charter ordinance which makes one change, and that change is to move the date that council members and officials elected in the general election in November take office from the second Monday in January to the first regularly scheduled city council meeting in December after certification of the election results. Most times that's going to be the first meeting in December. So that's what you have in front of you. There have been no other changes to Charter Ordinance 36, 2015, just that one change of the date.
Thank you, Doug. Tom?
I was just going to say, this brings us more in line with, or consistent with the way the law was before when we had the April elections. So we're not doing anything any different.
No, that's a good observation. Back when the elections were in April, I think the officers were sworn in and invested the first meeting in May, generally. Changing of the guard.
Right. Or the first council meeting after the elections, I
Maybe
think is
the
what it
second
was.
meeting in April even.
Yeah. So I'm going to make a motion, we approve the Charter Ordinance 38, 2019, exempting the city of Park City from previous provisions in KSA 14103, KSA 14201, KSA 14204, and KSA 25205, and KSA 252120 relating to the election officers or terms of office, transitions to November elections, and appointment of officers and nomination petitions, and providing statutes and additional provisions on the same subject, and repealing Charter Ordinance C-36, 2015.
Ben?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Dee, would you call the roll?
John Lanhare.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Ben Salcetta.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Ray Mann.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that charter ordinance passes 9-0. Thank you, Dee. That brings us to item 8, which is discuss and consider the site use agreement for the collection of household hazardous waste. Dana?
Thank you, Mayor Mann and Council, for your consideration this evening. Sedgwick County has offered to host a collection of household hazardous waste. On October 5th, 2019, it would be in the east parking lot here at the building. Sedgwick County will advertise and promote the event through its contractor, Clean Harbors. They will mobilize all of their equipment here in our parking lot. And Sedgwick County and Park City residents will be able to bring the hazardous waste in and dispose of it. So it's a good opportunity for them to get rid of things when they're going through that fall cleaning that we like to promote. This event will allow the safe disposal of hazardous waste materials to include solid, liquid, or semi-solid materials, which are originally generated by households, such as gasoline, other fuels, used motor oil, antifreeze, solvents, latex, and oil-based paints. The city will be responsible to promote the event on our own social media, to provide the site, traffic signage and control, and to provide staff or volunteers. We're looking at 4 individuals at all times to help unload those items and bring them to their tables. The city will provide 2 public works staff, and then we'll work to try to get volunteers for the rest of the man hours that were needed. What the fiscal impact would be to the city is the wages of 2 of our public works employees. This will, once again, it goes in very nicely with our fall events. We have the city-wide garage sale, September 28th, which allows people to dispose of items. Brush and Limb Day is also on October 5th. It will be in the park. Then we have our shredding event on October 12th. So there's 3 events in the fall that will really be good for our residents. The contract is attached. The attorney has reviewed that, and so we are recommending approval of this event.
Okay. Jim?
I think this is a great thing, especially as someone who does work in his own garage and needs a place to go with some of these chemicals. So, but my only concern is I don't think it's a good idea to have hazardous waste in, a $5 million building's parking spot. I mean, I guess I'm not real good with the location. I think we ought to take it somewhere else. I mean, this will be a clean way of doing this, but messes do happen, and the contract says we're responsible for the cleanup.
Well, I do understand the concern, and I did talk with them about that, and they said that they have never had spillage. They do have all of the materials that they need to clean up in the event, and they have a lot of these remote sites. So they felt pretty comfortable that we wouldn't have any issues, and if they were, they will clean that up for us.
I'll speak as a lender for a second and just say, you know, any loan you make on a building over $1 million requires an environmental questionnaire. And if on that environmental questionnaire they say, well, yeah, they were disposing of hazardous waste there, then you have to go in and potentially do phase 1 environmental reports. I'm just worried that you could compromise the value of this building. God forbid something happened. Just seems like we have other facilities. We should do this, and we have other facilities that might be more suited for this.
We previously have done this in the park. They've asked if we can do it on some type of like cement. We've done it in areas that we've put things down in the past. There would be other opportunities to go to the park with this. If that's what the desire would be, we would need to move the date, of course, because we have something that is in the park on that date. It has been somewhat difficult for us to do events such as this and in the park because we don't want to be on top of BMX or people that are in the park doing recreational activities. So I understand your concern, and if that's the desire of the council to look at another location,
I was thinking
we certainly would do that.
public works buildings or, you know, someplace where we
Well,
have
and
chemicals around anyway.
what we want to make sure is that it's easy for residents of Sedgwick County and Park City to be able to get in. And the other thing is, if it is at this location, it is something that is well seen so that people can see that the event is going on, and that would drive more people potentially in. These items that they're bringing in are things that you use in your own home. So the toxicity level, and I understand your concern of you know, toxic waste, but it is something that is household, so it's something that you're using in your home. So example, if you have paint, you don't have to go down to Stillwell in Sedgwick County to get rid of that at this point. You just bring it up here. If you have linseed oil and things of that nature, what do you do with it? You have to find a way to properly dispose of it, but it is household hazardous waste. So by hazardous, we don't want that into our stormwater system or anything of that nature. So those are the types of items that we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
How much space do they need to set up?
I would say that there will be plenty of room that is in this east parking lot. They will have tables that they will set up. They will also have a dumpster that they'll bring in. And then what happens is we'll take the parking through. Someone will go up to the car, take out the box or whatever they bring their items in, take it to the table, then they go through with it, and then they'll dispose of it how is appropriate for whatever material it is. So it doesn't take a lot of space.
Okay, I was just wondering what I know you said that dumpster, just kind of, I'm just curious if there's any way that the dead-end street could be used at the back of to move it from the parking lot. I'm just trying to look at, I mean, I understand exactly where Jim's coming
Certainly.
from. You just don't want to see somebody dump their pink aqua paint on the parking lot,
Right.
and we have to try to figure out how to get that cleaned up. I'm just wondering if
sounds like
that could be utilized in some ways, and it's a dead-end street, and, you know.
It sounds like a good option. We can certainly look at that.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, I think I'd be all right with that. I think it's great. I don't want anybody to think I don't like it. I think it's a great idea. I just wanted to find a better place.
Okay. All right. Ben?
If we did that, is there adequate traffic flow to get to that dead end and back out of there? I guess is the library part, I remember they have to go through the side of the library then to be able to get back out. If we're using dead end street, how would they?
John?
I'm satisfied with it. I mean, it may be one of those where next year we'll do a little different, but I'm satisfied with the plan you have here. And I would make a motion that we approve the agreement with Sedgwick County for collection of household hazardous waste.
George?
I'll second that.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
And that motion passes 6-2. And that brings us to item 9. Thank you, Dana. That brings us to item 9, which is discuss and consider approving the purchase of 1-inch water meters. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Staff needs to purchase an additional 60 water meters for new home construction through the remainder of the year. New home construction averages 6 new homes a month. This request is separate from the meter replacement program and is considered a cash neutral expenditure, and the total cost is $32,100. Fiscal impact, it's unbudgeted, is to be paid out of the water fund. Staff recommends approval, and attached in your packet is the Metron Farnier quote.
Thanks, Eric. It's kind of good to have a problem where we're building so much that we need some new meters.
Correct.
Tom?
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the purchase of 61-inch water meters for new home construction from Mentron Farner, is that how it's said? In the amount of $32,100 to be paid from the water department budget.
Okay. George?
I'll second that motion.
John?
Are the current ones that we were doing, is there any change of this, like the 1 inch, are they all 1 inch meters or?
We have 1 inch meters in some areas of the newer areas of town, and the 5/8 by 3/4 inch meters of the older part of the town, and we're still replacing those on our replacement program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. That was it for items on the agenda, so we'll move on to governing body reports, and we'll start with Jim.
I don't have anything to report tonight.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
George?
Well, it's like I mentioned to you earlier, I don't know if the Kansas legislature could help us or not. But I, for one, I think along with a lot of people, are getting fed up with the robocalls. You know, I've got Call Protect, and they just blow right by it. They, on the National No-Call Registry, they completely ignore that. And I would think that somewhere, that some of these agencies that we're funding should do something to stop this, because it has reached the point of being abuse. It's abuse of the American citizens. And I don't know if we could make a big complaint to the Kansas legislature if there was anything they could do in Kansas. But, you know, it has reached a point. Before I left the house this evening, there was about 5. And it's in fact, they've even flipped over and called me on my home phone number. You know, it's ridiculous. They're breaking the law. And everybody's just got their head stuck in the sand in these official deals. And I don't know if there's anyone we could lean on to get some help on this. That's all I got.
Tom?
I'd like to say they're looking at that at the federal level, and there are things they can do. There's, at some level, they're already working it, but not to where they need to be. So I agree. They're cloning phone numbers, and I get phone calls all the time from people saying you called. And I go, no, I don't even know who they were. So they've used my phone number to call other people. So I agree with George. Something needs to happen. So that's all I got.
Yeah. Melvin?
I have nothing.
Ben?
Well, I've actually got a phone call from my own phone number before I just come to that cloning stuff, so I feel your pain. One thing I did want to just throw out as a reminder, we had our coffee event this last weekend, and one of the things that came up was the Park City flag. And so just want to remind people you can get your Park City flag, I almost said memorabilia, it's not quite that, but you can, there's places around town you can get it, it's available to use there, and love to see it back out, used a lot more there around town. It's a great design, so just a reminder, take that out, put it up, do whatever you need to, but it's a lot of work in there, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah. George?
I don't have anything.
John?
Yes, I guess this is something I visited about a while back, but I guess I would like to see us take a look at our IRB policy of granting IRBs. In the past, I think when we started to grow as a city, we were doing 100% for up to 10 years, and I know we've tweaked that back a little bit, but I guess I would just like to see us discuss or have a discussion at some point, or maybe our administrator maybe coming up with some recommendations, and then maybe we can have some workshops or at least maybe agenda items that we can kind of give him some feedback on what direction we want to go. But I feel like as we've kind of become more of a destination for manufacturing and some retail even, that maybe it's time to tighten that up a little bit, or at least be less giving away the farm to get folks here, as we actually have a lot of resources that folks are seeking us out.
I would agree. I'd like to see us bring back and look at our economic development plan, because it is a little dated. And I think personally, we've been doing too much. We need to cut that back and do some type of stair-stepped method. I think that's better for the city, for the citizens. It's better for the company too, just to get climatized to that. And in some way, put something in there that we will never go back and reissue IRBs for somebody after they've rolled off, because we've done that a few times, and I think that behavior should never happen again.
I guess I just feel like, and I kind of voiced this back when this happened, but on a hotel in town, that, I mean, I felt like they were having some trouble, and I get that. I mean, businesses change, and sometimes their plans aren't what they thought they were, but I mean, I feel like, especially, we're still doing snow removal, we're still doing police services, and we're still doing, any other municipal services for them, and we have to be able to recoup that in some fashion. But for us to do 100% in repeated times, and I know there's one up at 77th Street that we did, the business sold before the IRBs expired, so a new company came in and actually is thriving and doing very well and been great for us, and actually exceeded our expectations. And I think that was a great endeavor, but I just think it's time for us to maybe take a look at that. I think Sean's done a great job at reporting to us as companies are coming this direction, but maybe a great time for us to take a look at that. Thank you.
I'd agree. And something George always brings up too is these businesses that we bring in, and their large trucks, and the use and abuse that it takes on the streets, and we go 10 years and we never collect anything. It'd be nice to see a change. Ben?
I'd make a motion to be adjourned.
Is there a second? Jim?
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 8-0. Thank you.